we're sorry for the massive disruption it's caused to their lives. And there's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. I'd like my life back. So there's no one who wants this thing done more than I do. And we are doing everything we can to contain the oil offshore, defend the shoreline, and return people's lives to normal as fast as we can.
Welcome back to The Ed Show. And finally tonight, 11 people lost their lives and countless more along the coast lost their livelihood as the result of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill of 2010. Crude spewed into the Gulf for 87 days and spread across hundreds of miles of beaches on the shores of 5 different states. Now, more than 4 years later, a federal judge has ruled BP acted recklessly leading up to the spill, and those dangerous decisions were motivated by profit. In a 153-page ruling released on Thursday, the judge concluded the discharge of oil was the result of gross negligence or willful misconduct by the company BP. The ruling opens BP up to a fine of $18 billion, the maximum penalty under the Clean Water Act. BP was assigned a majority, 67% of the blame, but it wasn't the only company ruled responsible. Transocean, owner of the Deepwater Horizon drilling rig, was assigned 30% of the blame, and Halliburton, the well's cement contractor, is on the hook for 3%. Now, the next stage of this case is set to begin in January when a judge will decide how much BP must actually pay. Will it be $18 billion? Joining us tonight, Brent Coon, attorney with Brent Coon and Associates. Brent, good to have you with us tonight. You have represented a lot of folks down there who have seen a lot of suffering and financial despair in recent years. Tell us of some of the decisions made by BP that resulted in this ruling as you see it.
Well, Ed, good points, and good to see you on a Friday evening. But the points were, there are so many you couldn't enumerate them all. Again, the judge made 618 specific separate findings in this very broad-based opinion from a case that he tried for a significant period of time last year. But we know of several major factors. One is BP was desperate to get this well drilled. They were way past the production deadlines. They had some adverse weather conditions before. They were losing $500,000 a day. So in their rush to get this well completed and to get the drilling well moved to another place so they could hurry up and drill some more wells, they pulled the plug, literally and figuratively, on this particular well too soon, and the cement had not cured, and there are a number of other technical reasons that it wasn't properly ready to be closed out and moved to a new location. As a consequence, the well didn't hold, the gas came out, and the explosion and aftermath that we all read about the last 4 years occurred.
Well, clearly, Brent, there's no restitution for the loss of life. 11 lives lost back on that day, but $18 billion. Your analysis of that? Two things. One is the penalty is based on how many barrels of oil spilled, and it's basically a mathematical calculation. Once that's determined, the judge takes that amount and he multiplies it by some number between 1 and 4 for the punitive. So what we did already know was that there were 4 to 5 million barrels of oil spilled, and under the Clean Water Act, you multiply that times about $1,000 a barrel. So you're looking at $4 or $5 billion as a minimum amount. Now, with punitive damages, the statute allows the court to multiply that by up to a figure of 4, which is now a number that you're looking at in the potentially the $18 billion range. Again, the judge has some discretion in finding out for his own self, based on the testimony, how many barrels actually spilled. And interestingly, you may recall that in the beginning of this case, when the oil was still spilling, like you mentioned, 87 days it was spilling, the BP executives covered up the amount of oil that was spilling, and they lied to Congress and kept saying it was only 1,000 barrels a day, when they knew, in fact, it was up to 50 to 100,000 barrels a day. Beware of the oil companies when things like this happen. That's one of the big lessons in all of this, as I see it. How long is it going to take before we actually see? How long is it going to take before we actually see financial restitution of the folks that have gone through the financial hardship?
You know, good point, Ed. The sad thing is we represent people that were on that rig that day that haven't been compensated. We represented people that lost their livelihoods. Not only were they put out of work, many of our clients lost their business because they didn't have the ability to withstand the year or two it took for the economy to rebound along the Gulf Coast, and they haven't been paid yet. BP's done a good job of whitewashing what's going on today, but the reality is the vast majority of claimants have never been paid. And the stories that BP pays for, their paid advertising, presents a very false statement of facts as to what's really going on. These people have waited 4 years, and based on the way BP's appealed every decision in this case, we're looking at several more years at a minimum before we see things really going better for them, if ever. And the problem with this penalty now is that all this money goes to the United States government. And granted, they're entitled to bring those claims for the Clean Water Act violations, but it further slows down the process of dealing with what I believe to be the bigger insult in what happened here, which is the devastating impact it had on these lives and livelihoods.
Brent, Coon, we will stay on the story. This is a big ruling for those who have been involved in this, and they've been waiting a long time for this. There's no question about it. The wheels of justice take a long time to roll, but $18 billion certainly will help those folks if that's what it actually comes down to. Great to have you with us tonight, Brent. Appreciate it. And that is the Ed Show.